All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Welcome to our first ever new board member series webinar, part of a monthly program in 2021 for newly elected Michigan school board members. I'm Jill Fennessy, current president of the Michigan Association of School Boards, fondly known as MASB. And joining me for today's webinar is Damo Truba, executive director for MASB.
Thank you, Jill, and welcome to all of our new members that are on today. I think we have registered about 180. We're not quite there yet, but we are moving up in numbers. So this is a new format for many of you. If you are used to Zoom, you're used to the Zoom meetings function, and you have the ability to see other people. You have the ability to talk to us. This is the webinar format. Maybe some of you use it at your district. I know some do for your board meetings. So this is a model where you really only see the presenters. You have the ability to chat through the chat function and ask questions through that function. And one of the things that we want to do, and as a team, we were just talking about this before we came on, we do want you to learn who each other is as new board members and create kind of that peer support group. And there are going to be activities throughout the year where that is going to be available as we expect these monthly webinars to operate in a webinar fashion like this on a monthly basis. So just understand how we're doing that. So if you have questions, and we do have a Q&A section at the end of this, put them into the chat function and we will get to them. We will record this and share this with everybody that is a newly elected or appointed board member. And any resources that we mentioned today from MASB will also be included in future emails out to you as new board members. So be aware of that. I'm looking, just before I turn it back over to Jill, as far as how you can mute, I did see one in the Q&A, how can I mute myself? At this point, no sound comes through to the other participants because of the webinar model. So everybody is muted, and you don't have to worry if you are, there's noise in the background. That's not going to come through to the rest of the group that participates on this. So hopefully that will take care of things for you. And please, as I said, as other questions come up, both in a connectivity standpoint, if you're having issues with this, or in any other way, please throw it into the chat function, and we'll make sure that we get that question answered. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Jill.
Thank you, Don. As I mentioned, I'm Jill Fennessy, current MASB president, and I have with me Damo Truba, MASB executive director. Something I didn't yet mention is that I'm also an 11-year member of the Tri-County Area Schools Board of Education. I have learned so much from MASB and its staff, and this has become an invaluable resource for my own school board journey, my district, and the students for which I serve. Today, we're going to give you a high-level overview of the Michigan Association of School Boards. As a newly elected board member, this is now your association, and it will help guide you along the way, just as it's helped me, not only in your first year, but as long as you're a Michigan school board member. We'll spend a good portion of this webinar running through information that will be of use to you, followed by time dedicated for questions and answers. Now that you know us a little more, please take this time to drop your name, your district, and what you hope to learn from today's webinar down in the chat. And we'll keep going with that. It's so good to see so many of you here today. Now let's get started. So how about a little MASB history? The Michigan Association of School Boards is a voluntary, nonprofit association of local and intermediate boards of education located throughout the state of Michigan. It was organized in 1949. Our membership is comprised of over 600 boards of education representing nearly all public school districts in the state. Here's a fun fact. MASB's first statewide conference was held in the fall of 1948, prior to the organization's legal incorporation on April 19th of 1949. Today, MASB is recognized as a major voice influencing education issues at the state level. Through its federation with the National School Boards Association, MASB and its members also have an impact at the national level. Through its work, MASB aims to advance the quality of public education in our state, promote high standards in providing educational programs, help school board members keep informed about education issues, represent the interests of boards of education, and promote public understanding about school boards and citizen involvement in our schools. All of these items help MASB align with its mission and therefore support the work of the school board. Speaking of the role of the board, a school board fulfills its mission when the members of the board and the superintendent understand their roles and work together in an environment of trust, mutual respect, understanding, and shared purpose. MASB, its services, and its staff are here to help in this work. We've mentioned the mission of MASB, so let's spend just a moment understanding what that looks like. The mission of MASB is to provide high-quality educational leadership services for all Michigan boards of education and to advocate for an equitable and exceptional public education for all students. Additionally, the vision of this organization is a well-governed, effective public school for every Michigan student. And before I wrap up my time with you this afternoon, I want to spend just a moment going over some of the current strategic goals and priorities set by the MASB Board of Directors. This is what largely helps guide my work, as well as some of the work of staff. The current strategic priorities set by the Michigan Association of School Board of Directors include providing more access to MASB training and services for all public school boards, encouraging student-focused individuals running for and serving on boards of education, and increasing engagement of the school community in advocacy for public education. In addition to these priorities, there are also a set of goals that help get us in alignment with these priorities. These goals include increasing utilization of the Member Assistance Fund, which exists to help defray costs of districts experiencing financial hardship or that see costs as a deterrent to accessing MASB services or events. Another goal was to establish a new member onboarding program, which is a big reason that you're here today. It just goes to show that these priorities and goals translate into meaningful change for MASB's members. Additionally, MASB is working to grow the number and activity level of member and non-member advocates, create an equity and diversity training program for membership, and finally, to expand online and virtual offerings and overall number of participants. It's no easy lift, but we're fortunate MASB has an amazing staff of experts working tirelessly to achieve all of these goals and develop other resources and programming to aid you along the way to work effectively as a part of your district's governance team. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to staff. Take it away.
Welcome.
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 We appreciate you for stepping up for your district.
And now that you're officially on board,
we would like to introduce your new one-stop resource,
the Michigan Association of School Boards.
Our mission is just as critical today as it was when the association was founded in 1949.
We are a leading authority on educational policy issues.
Our strength rests in the collective voice of over 4,000 board members,
whose coordinated efforts through MASB provides a strong voice in decision-making at state and federal levels.
We exist to serve your needs as an elected school leader.
Through board training, together and individually.
Providing up-to-date news and information. representation in Lansing and in Washington, D.C.,
answering your legal and labor questions,
offering tools for working with your superintendent,
a shared framework for effective school district governance, and
access to discounted district services like insurance.
That just scratches the surface
of what MASB can do for you
to ensure you and your district
are as effective as possible.
The MASB staff is here to help you every step of the way.
Join us for the monthly New Board Member Series webinars.
And visit our website and social media channels for more information.
We're your staff, so don't hesitate to reach out to us.
And thank you again for your commitment to Michigan's public school children. All right, welcome back, everybody. After that video, I am Don Watruba. I'm the Executive Director for MASB. If you've done a few things in January, you may have seen me on other webinars. But if not, welcome to both your role as a board member and welcome to being a member at MASB. This first slide, I just want to touch on. We have been undergoing work at MASB really to focus on our staff values and our commitment to the work that we do on behalf of school board members in Michigan. And through our work, you can see the slide that says the MASB staff are committed to a workplace that focuses on member success, builds trust, respect, and understanding, values inclusion and diversity, supports each other, and embraces and drives purposeful change that promotes growth. I have worked at MASB for 23 years, both as a lobbyist and then as the executive director. So I've been around a long time and understand the organization. And I would say that I understand the needs of board members, but they change. I've been a board member myself, but the needs for board members change. We saw that probably no more than in 2020 in the role that MASB plays. I'll already say that I'm appreciating folks starting to post things in the chat function. And I will say, you know, Jill said it to start this off. This webinar in particular is the 10,000 foot view of MASB. We're going to do one of these a month that will get into more topical items. So it will cover superintendent evaluation or other things along those lines. But also, you don't need to depend on these webinars as your only source of information. We'll talk more about the staff today. We'll talk more about kind of your access. But I would say at any time, you can contact MASB staff. We are available to you. I'll say for me, 24/7. I would ask that you not try to get everybody else on staff in that space, but we want to be available when you need us. And so it is not just at these webinars. It is not just on this website. An email sent to us, a phone call to us. That's what we're here for. You don't be shy about doing that at all. And I would also say, because I've heard from board members that have been on boards for a number of years that don't realize this, your district pays dues to this organization in a organizational membership. And so that means if your superintendent, and we have a lot of new superintendents out in the state that don't know this, although we do communicate with them, they have access to the same staff. We are a board member organization, but if a superintendent has a question and they need an answer, they can also call. It doesn't have to be you calling, getting the answer and bringing it to them. This is something that is open to both board members and superintendents. We'll talk a little bit about what our staff does for MASB and who we are as a staff overview. We have an administrative and HR team. In total, our staff is 29 staff members, and we also service districts through a large number of adjunct staff that work out in the field for workshops. We have a communications, PR, and marketing team. They are responsible for all of our publications, our marketing efforts, and reaching out to all of you. Finance and business services is, of course, as you would imagine, more internal, but they also help us to manage some products and services that we provide out to school districts that are not so much workshops, but we do work closely with SETSEG as an insurance company. Most of you have them for property casualty and workers' comp insurance. You actually access that company and get to that insurance product through us. We have a liquid asset investment fund that schools can participate in, and a number of other things that our finance and business services arm helps to take care of. Government relations. This is often one of those items that when we ask our members about value to membership, knowing that we have a government relations staff that lobbies both in Lansing and working through NSBA, our National Association, lobbies on your behalf in Washington, D.C. We have 3 staff members there. 2 focus really on that day-to-day lobbying, and one of them really focuses on grassroots advocacy, where Deshandria works with districts to actually help build your capacity and bring people beyond the school board together to lobby on behalf of public education within your communities if you're interested in that. We have an IT department that works closely with everybody on the team, but ensures that days like this can happen where we are connected to you in a variety of ways, make sure that our systems, our data, your data as school districts that submit to us, your names, your addresses, your email addresses and phone numbers all remain secure, and our IT team focuses on that. Labor relations and legal counsel. We provide labor relations for districts that are interested in doing that. Oftentimes what you will see there, and of course there are law firms in the state that do that, but you may have a new superintendent and you don't want him or her to start their career immediately fighting with your teachers. And so sometimes you do look to outside people to help facilitate that process. We have that ability. And we have what many consider probably our most valuable service in some ways to board members and superintendents is legal counsel. Brad Banasic is our legal counsel. He has also been at MASB for 23 years. We do not serve as district counsel where we represent you in court, but you will learn as a school board member, there are a variety of issues that you will encounter where you just are looking, or your superintendent are looking for quick clarifications on, if we do this, are we still within the Open Meetings Act? Oh, we had a FOIA request. Are we handling it the right way? And Brad is the person, and we have one other, Sharice, in that department that can answer those questions. And this is a place where your firms that you often have retainers with are great companies to work with, often partner with MASB, and we work with them even on some legal issues. But they also work on a billable hour, and that can be costly for a district. So as part of our dues, there's no cost to that. You can have access to our 2 attorneys to ask them those easier questions where you're not looking for somebody to defend you in court or defend you or protect you from litigation, but really just trying to find out if you're doing something the right way or to interpret a new law that's passed. Leadership development and executive search services. This is one that you will interact with quite a bit as new board members and as continuing board members. This is our department that puts together all of our training for you, whether that be our CBA certified board member classes, whether that be workshops within your district, or it is our conferences and one-day events that we run. The leadership development department does all of that. They have a large team that really focuses on that, a number of them having been former board members themselves. And also coupled with that is our executive search services, as we provide assistance to school districts to find new superintendents in their districts. And even many of you as new board members maybe heard the MASB name before you got elected, and it might have been because your district was looking for a new superintendent, and we were able to provide that service to you. So that is the MASB team. I've talked a little, about a number of these issues and how we handle or help you. I've mentioned working with your superintendent. That is, I think of our leadership development department, and as they take calls and emails during the course of a week, asking questions about a district, situations that are happening, I would guess that it's probably 50-50, and even our legal questions to Brad are pretty similar to that. And so your superintendents hopefully are taking advantage of that access. They have their own association, the Michigan Association of Superintendents Administrators. MASA shares a building with us. They have a wonderful team to serve superintendents, but as it comes to questions about board activity and some of that, it just makes sense for your superintendent to come directly to us. And district governance. We try to put ourselves in a place to be your expert on district governance, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, what are the best practices. And sometimes you walk into difficult issues within your district and you're just looking for somebody to say, is this normal? Is this the way that it should be? And we can provide that information based on the years of experience that our staff provides. So we are here to help you. It's a large team, but it is a team that is completely dedicated to our school board members. It's one of the great things as we interview new staff members and say, what do you like about working at MASB? Often one of the answers is the membership that we serve. They really, the people that we have here like serving school board members. They like that you are about serving students. And that would be, I guess, a distinction that I would point out. Jill shared with you our mission. And our mission is focused on school board members. I think some might say, well, wouldn't your mission be focused on kids because your members are focused on kids? Ultimately, our job is to make you the best school board members that you can be so that you can better serve kids. Yes, when we lobby, we do lobby on things that affect kids and on your behalf in that space, but our mission is really focused at that school board level. So please take advantage of any time that you are looking for assistance from us. Now let's talk a little bit about communications from us to you and what those channels are. I mentioned our communications team, and these are the publications that we put out to you on a, I'll say, monthly basis. You'll see the frequency of them. Michigan Soundboard, excuse me, is a podcast that I host. Do it twice a month, and it is me talking with education leaders, legislative leaders, both in the state and nationally. Sometimes we will cover conference speakers that are coming up at a conference to give you some idea of the topics that they have expertise in and what they'll be sharing at a conference with you. So that is an avenue for those that like a podcast format. It's a great way for you to get a little more in depth. They're a half an hour long, so great for taking a walk in the neighborhood or on the treadmill. We have our Leaderboard Magazine. It is a print publication. We print it 3 times a year, winter, spring, and fall. It is what you expect in a magazine. It's a glossy magazine. We purposefully, and when we relaunched this about 6 years ago, just before I took over as executive director, and I've continued this idea, which is we really try to limit the advertising in that magazine. We want to fill those pages with content. We want many of the topics to be evergreen. So if you put it on a bookshelf and you want to go back 6 months or a year later, the content will still be relevant. Of course, you don't do that on everything, but it is definitely a place where we go more in depth on educational issues that are important to school board members and districts. Dashboard is our bi-weekly newsletter that comes in an email to you. And that is where we're covering current topics and hot topics in education. It's the place that you're going to want to turn to learn about what's happening today out in the state, out at the federal level, maybe what's coming down the road, whether it be in technology, curriculum, or other areas. We cover that in Dashboard. On the first Thursday of each month, we do a short video newscast hosted by our Director of Communications and Marketing, where we, as you would imagine, it's a video newscast, cover a couple of topics that are pertinent at that time, highlight usually a school district or something that a school district is doing out there that is innovative, and that comes through you into a video space. I will mention in the video space, it slides away from publications. This is also something that we started a few years ago. We brought a full-time videographer on staff, largely because we see much more communication. If you have kids still, or even maybe yourself, many of us turn to YouTube as our place for information now. And knowing that our members were going to be in that space as we move forward, we knew that we needed as MASB to be in that space. And so we have a full-time staff member on the video space, but that person also can do work with school districts. School districts hire us to help make promotional videos and things along those lines. So one of the services that we provide that doesn't get talked about a lot, but really is quite a good service. On the legislative side of things, we do news from the Capitol most Fridays, particularly when the legislature is in session. That's written by our government relations staff. It's one of our more popular, one of our highest open rate publications, because people really want to see like what happened in Lansing this week, anything that can, is going to concern our district and be ahead of that game. And I think as new board members, you may not kind of recognize your role as, in essence, advocates on behalf of your district and on behalf of your kids at the state and federal level. And so we work to help you. You'll have a webinar this year in this series that will do that with Jen and Jeff and their team. But I think if you read News from the Capitol and become more familiar with what's happening, it also makes you much more comfortable if we ask you to reach out to a legislator and say, contact them to vote no or vote yes or something like that. This becomes something good for that. Also something that we do in an e-newsletter every Friday morning. We started this actually when the pandemic started, as we recognized just everything that people were going through. And of course, pre-pandemic, we had many of the same things, just not as heightened. And so we launched a hashtag Msb Healthy Newsletter. And it's just, we're just covering small bits of information. We share it on social media that give people that have access to it tidbits of information about how you can deal with Zoom fatigue as you sit on meetings like this, how you can deal with mental health and well-being issues that you may have or that you might recognize that your kids are having or your kids at school are having. And it's just another piece that we added to the mix of things that we share with board members. We understand that you will not, some of you might like reading, and you're going to do that. Others like the video side of things. Others are going to like the podcast. There is probably some repetition, but not much between our different channels of communication. But in seeing all of these, you can imagine that you will start getting a lot of emails from MASB. And so, that is something that we are aware of as a staff. The CPRM team thinks about it a lot, because you get all of these items. You will get notifications of marketing items related to conferences that we have coming out, classes that you can take, and it can get to be a rather large volume. And we're not trying to bury you in materials, although it may seem like it with everything you're getting from your district and from MASB now that you're newer board members. But please, I would urge you, take a look at that. If it seems like it's a lot in your inbox, clearly there are ways that you can have things go to a folder so that you know exactly. And so if you like the podcast and you send that to a folder every month so you don't see it in your email, but you can go back and grab it, that is a way to deal with it. So just be aware that we are cognizant that we send you a lot of information through our publications. Also, as we get new board members, and I don't think this is kind of age-based, but I will say as we get younger board members, I'm realizing now as I watch commercials, I'm getting to a point, commercials on TV, that I'm falling into the older generation. But so social media is still a place that we communicate a lot on. Usually when we're on social media, it is communicating in a redundant fashion. Some of those things, it won't be that would be the only way we communicate an item. But we do have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube, as I mentioned earlier. And so social media is a way that we're regularly communicating with you in an active way. We also use our website as a passive communication tool for all of you. You have two things related to the website. One, as new board members, you have access to a landing page that is going to be set for you, and it makes it easier so that you don't have to go through everything on this website to find things. We thought of those things that were appropriate for first-year board members that you might want ready access to, and that is something that's available to you. This website, of course, is also available to you. You can see how it's broken down, just like any other website. The information that you want, we have a calendar on there. If you're in the training and events, you see that just popped up on the screen. You have education community to decide where you are, or not education community to look at kind of things relevant to you, relevant to your superintendent. And I failed to mention it earlier, we actually also work with superintendent administrative assistants that often are helping all of you as board members. We also provide training to them throughout the year That is something that we've done for a number of years, including some legal items like FOIA and open meetings to keep you in compliance. So that's another group that we do serve. They interact with us a lot. And as I think about the administrative assistants, they are often, and particularly at this stage as you enter MASB, they are who get your profile active on MASB's website. You will have a username and a password for MASB. Typically, you'll see that set up by your district secretary. But after that, once you have that information, we really would encourage you to come into our member center, look at your profile, fill in the blanks that the secretary did not fill in for you. Some of it's demographic information. Some of it is just how best to contact you. We have an ability, if you would like to be able to be contacted through text alerts, both on legislative items and on MASB items that are very timely. You can sign up on that page to do that. So we would encourage you to do that. And you might even have a situation where the superintendent secretary uses a generic password to start you off with or something like that. And you want to be able to go in there and create a password that you're more familiar with. You will be able to do that. Cindy Holmes on our staff is our really point person with everything related to kind of membership directory based, how to do that, how to navigate it. And she's also the person that is tasked with that response. She's our registrar for conferences, but it's also the individual that's tasked with working with superintendent secretaries, administrative assistants, and setting you up. Also, we have through this is where you'll get ready and start doing online registration if you are taking classes from us. So there's a lot that comes out of our website. It's, you know, people talk about it's a lot, there's a lot on there. It's hard to find everything. And I think part of that is just the nature of serving over 4,000 school board members and all of the things that you need. We are actually beginning a process of a new website, but that is at least, you know, looking probably in the neighborhood of a year down the road, maybe even 18 months before it's completed. That's how intensive of a task doing a new website is. So with that, I want to get to a place to say thank you and start going through questions that Jill and I can answer for you. I'm going to go into the chat and start looking at those and see the things that you have of interest, and I'll pass some on to Jill and some to me. And I'm looking at them right now, Jill, as we start going through. I did touch base earlier on superintendent evaluation. Somebody said they want to learn from MASB more about that. I will say more is coming. If you have specific questions because maybe you have an evaluation coming up shortly, or just want to know how they run, I would say 80% of the districts in Michigan are using MASB's evaluation tool that was created a few years back when the law passed to require evaluation in a certain format. But you can call directly to our leadership development department or go onto our website and go under staff and you'll see leadership development. And Jay Bennett would be the right person on our staff to contact directly if you have questions on superintendent evaluation. You know, Jill, I'm going to give you a more generic question. You know, somebody saying just wants to know how to best represent my community and my district. So you've been on your local board for a dozen years or more. Like, how do you view your role as a board member in being that connection to your community and kind of representing their views, but being on a whole board governance?
I think listening is a very big part of it, and being engaged, volunteering in activities, hearing what people in the community are saying, and sharing those ideas or thoughts at your board table. And always trying to remember that all the students now are your special interest. And so some of these groups, rightfully so, they're very interested in, you know, a band program or an athletic situation, whatever really is important in their world. And so you can represent them by sharing those thoughts and having those conversations at your board table.
Thanks, Jill. I did see Greg posted in the chat a link for MASB staff and contact information. So please avail yourselves of that. It saves you from having to go on the website and search through that. He also has posted links on publications, social media. One to point out to you, so we have an issue of Dashboard that will be coming out today. So watch your email. If you haven't been paying attention to that so far as you've been elected, look for that email address that as it comes to you so you can recognize it and know what it is and be ready for that. You also see that DeShandria has posted on here from our government relations staff to sign up for the weekly news from the Capitol emails and has given you the link to do so. So here's one. With all the emails we are receiving, it would be helpful if the emails that give us links for things we have registered for would begin with the word sign on for MASB. That actually is a suggestion along that lines that we have been talking about on staff. Just had a conversation, in fact, yesterday with the Assistant Director of Communications in this. We've started to hear that from a few others, both the regarding line. So if it's that, it's, sign up for something for MASB. The other one is, of course, when you see an email that's generic, so, gr@masb.org rather than dwatruba@masb.org, some are going to pick up the dwatruba one quickly, but gr is something that maybe you don't grab right away. And so we are looking at how to best do that and make sure that we're sending them to you so that you recognize their importance, while at the same time with the volume that we send, if everyone was tied specifically to a name of staff, like you would get to a point where you would say none of them are important and we would lose all of you in that. So we are looking at the best way to do that. Thankfully, and it's not my area of expertise, it is our CPRM team, but there is research about what works the best in that, and our team is looking at that regularly to see how we communicate. And I see we have a number of our staff here actually welcoming you, and I appreciate them being on today. Does MSB ever collect information from the districts that might be useful, such as what each district is doing regarding in-person learning versus remote learning, whether districts are offering pass-fail options for grades? So Debbie, that's a good question. We do semi-annual surveys of our members trying to get information. During the course of the year, we have reached out to ask questions like you're talking about here related to the pandemic. Frankly, what we found is that we don't get enough responses for it to be very it's not, we don't have a big enough set to say, here's how everybody's doing things. What we did launch to try to get to this space, Debbie, is we have it's another webinar, but a Member Matters webinar. We just ran it this week where we had the governors, one of the governor's staff and DHHS on to talk about the announcement last week about antigen testing and the vaccine. And in those webinars, different than this one, we opened that up after probably a short presentation or me leading into a conversation. We open that up so the members, and we typically have 100 or so members on it, that you can talk to each other. You can pose questions, ask questions. And so that has been, as I've heard from the members that participate, has been a great venue for the board members to get on there and say, what are you doing? We're considering a change in how we're doing our hybrid plan. What are you doing? And so since the summertime, we started it, I think our first one was probably back in April of last year. We've continued to have those. So all through the summer, as schools were adopting return to learn plans, deciding what they were going to do in September, we used the Member Matter webinar as a method for you to be able to reach out yourself in a facilitated way to hear from a number of other districts to see what they were doing. And it's proven to be a pretty good way if a person's participating. And we do highlight districts, not so much in the pandemic space that you're talking about, but we do like clinic sessions at our conferences are often related to our districts. And that's a place that we kind of try to show what are innovative things happening in districts, and we put those forth at our conference. So that is another place to go in that. Is the handout section of the website accessible to us? And if so, does it have a different logon or setup? I'm wondering on that one, I might need more information when we talk about the handout section. If we're talking about things as it relates to conference or events like this, where we, had a short PowerPoint. In this case, we will be sending it to you directly, so it won't be. We won't put it up on the website. We'll email this to you directly. As it relates to conference content, when we have items and speakers, and we don't do this for everything, but we will let members know that things are available on the website, and no, it is not a different login, unless it is tied to a conference that we charge for and your district paid a registration fee for, then that might be held in a different place that you'll be able to access it because you were a paying member in that situation. Does MASB have an idea when school board meetings can take place in person? We do know that the governor is doing another press conference this afternoon. She usually does, of course, a couple days before expiration. We do not expect a change in school board meetings at this announcement. Largely, of course, we've seen over the Christmas holiday and getting into early January an uptick related to the numbers of folks that are showing infections with COVID. And so I'm not expecting any changes in gathering limitations right now. But these orders are now relatively short term. They don't last as long as before. And we have been communicating with her, particularly as districts reopen, and with her announcement last week of trying to get everybody open to some form of face-to-face learning by March 1, that we would like to see if it was safe to make sure our district boards can be back meeting. So we have been communicating in that space. Greg answered Amanda's question about the new board member space. Any advice as to COVID and school opening for in-person teaching? Faculty and families are at opposite sides of this issue. I'll let this our new board member answer one of my emails, or two emails that I got just last night. One from a board member that said that we are supporting the governor's orders too much. And I also got another one yesterday from a board member that didn't like that we, in a different way, that person wanted it face-to-face and let's get out of the way. And then I had somebody else that was concerned about March 1 as even getting anybody back in face-to-face communication in our district. So not only is your staff and family in different places, sometimes our own board members are. I think, Jill, this is a space, your district was open in the fall, right, to start the year. I am sure that you had faculty members, teachers, and other support staff that had concerns about reopening. Any suggestions on how to kind of bridge that gap behind parents that want everything to happen and staff members that are just concerned for their own health and well-being?
We had surveyed our student body and our staff about their thoughts of returning to in-person versus virtual learning. And so based on those results, and we did decide, we opened at the end of August to in-person, staff that were very concerned about being in person had an option to work in our virtual space. And so anybody that was concerned about coming back to in-person had that opportunity. And the same thing with our parents. So we were very fortunate that we were able to offer it both ways. I know it's more difficult for some districts to have been able to do that. And it was very helpful for us. Some of the restrictions, we had parents that were wanting us to be as, more safe, and others were, we shouldn't be so worried about this. So our district opted to do everything possible to follow all the guidelines, return to school guidelines, social distancing, masking, all of those things. And staff were all trained on all the PPE and everything about safety. And so I think we kind of had the best of both worlds.
Yeah, the transparency piece, the communication piece, both with community and teachers, as I've interacted with districts this year, has been important. As board members, your constituents are not only those that elected you, but it's the kids in your district that don't get to vote. It's the parents in the district. It's the non-parents in the district. And of course, that makes the job difficult. They all have different views. Clearly, with the pandemic, we've seen that turn into kind of a political space also. And thankfully, most board members don't wear their own personal politics on their sleeve. They come in and they're a governance body. But it is what I have seen in districts where the reopening is it is communication. It is not making the parents that want to be open out to be the bad guys, nor the teachers that are concerned about safety. But regular communication with your community and with your staff, and doing things, I think early on, and I think we're beyond that, except for those maybe that haven't went back to in-person, regular communication with your staff about reopening, if that's the phase that you're in, and how it's going to work, and safety precautions. I think the antigen testing that's being added will be another safety feature that will make teachers feel more comfortable. But that has to happen. If a board and a superintendent tries to move in that direction without real communication with their teachers union and support staff union, that's when you really start having problems, because a lack of information creates a vacuum and thus a lot of other things coming out. So that's where I would go with communication. Let's see, and we're clearly going to run out of, as I look at timing, we've got a lot of messages and questions still on there. Let's see, links and other information that came up today. I mentioned at the top of the hour, we will be sharing that with members through an email. Getting community members better involved, showing up at meetings. The pandemic has actually been interesting by having virtual meetings. I think school board members have seen more people participate than ever because we've gotten rid of the barrier of having to be there in person. I don't know that every district will continue with that into the future, even if they're back in person. But I think it is communications. It's showing that you welcome them. And sometimes it's relevance. I mean, you will have things at a school board meeting where the general public will look at your agenda and be like, there's just nothing there that is something that I'm overly concerned about or need to see. And the other piece is there's great confidence in the elected officials that they've put in place to run their district. And so that is a piece where I think there's a struggle. I mean, if we think about it at a larger scale, we don't all run into Lansing regularly to watch session because we elect our legislators to go there and do what we think is appropriate. And I think people really do view the school board election similarly. They elect 7 people to represent them and more importantly than represent them, but to govern their districts well. And so they're leaving that up to you. And meetings often aren't heavily attended because they're pretty comfortable with who they put in those seats. We've posted some things on our soup evaluation tool. Can we talk about a bit about the conference that is coming up, which particular sessions might be? We were talking about the Winter Institute in that case. And I will say with the Winter Institute, and I'd have to look at the agenda, so if we have members of the team on that want to post and specifically point in that direction about what items are up. With the Winter Institute, it's a one-day session. Most of it is general session so that it's not about kind of picking and choosing. It's really, I think, relevant for everything. There are clearly over the weekend as we go beyond Friday, our class list, our certified board member program, that 100 level series of classes, particularly CBA 101, and I know that it's sold out for that session already. Part of that is due to our board's graciousness and appreciation of our members and Jill and the rest of the board putting that together and offering it for free to all of our newly elected members this year for the first time. But I would definitely look at that side of things. Webinar yesterday, and I was hoping to get the handouts. Those will get posted. Just give us the space to get them up there. It does take a bit of time. I know it's an overview. Could you explain how board members earn education credits towards CBA levels beyond the classes? That's a great question. It is typically serving on your local board, serving as an officer on your board, attending education-related events, both with MASB, NSBA, and even locally, being on your county association, being active in that. All of those items create education credits beyond the classes themselves. Jill, other ones that you can think of that you get credit for as you went through the CBA levels?
Even writing an article or letter to the editor of your local paper, participating in some of those activities. You can also earn education credits on those too.
Thank you. Greg posted, can we talk to folks about the CBA 101 opportunity? Yeah, it was great in November. I was lucky enough to be the one that got to announce to the membership of MASB that our board had made a decision at the meeting just days before to be able to offer our CBA 101 class, which is that basic introduction class. It is 6 hours long, although this year we are willing to split it because of the virtual nature, and provide that to all newly elected and appointed board members from November of the election all the way through the end of this calendar year. It is something that we're going to be offering now at least once a month, both in a online version that you can take at any time, but also in a virtual version like we would have something like we're doing today. We just think that class, and we've heard from board members and superintendents how fundamental and important that class was to helping them get off on the right foot. And so we would encourage you to take a look on our website. If you need to, call Cindy Holmes and figure out when the next one's coming that you might register for, or if you want to take it online. But that was a program, our organization understands the financial struggles the districts are going through right now, with state funding being, in question with the pandemic, and you spending additional money on pandemic items within your district. Our association, through good fortune and your participation in the organization over the years and bringing us in for workshops and other things, we've been able to put away some money into the kind of rainy day fund, we'll call it. And our board decided that, this year we're doing it in a couple of other spaces too, but that we wanted to provide that to all new board members. I already see somebody recommending CBA 101 on the chat here. Greg is mentioning we'll be updating the website on the CBA 101 dates to keep checking. Does the no cost include the online CBA? Yes, it does. That is something where we, and this is one, like any program like this, we have a budget to follow just like you do as a school. And so we have to put some parameters on things. And so, we had the request, we just appointed somebody in September, do they qualify? And at some point we had to create a starting point of this. And it was actually when our board voted to do it, which was at our November meeting, the day before the conference. And we're extending that all the way through this calendar year until December 31st of 2021. Anybody elected or appointed in that space will be able to get it for free. I will say, if you're a board member that has been on a board and got elected or re-elected, I should say at that time, that you are not a new board member. And so you would not qualify in that space. Believe it or not, that question has come up. But absolutely, whether it be online, and let's hope let's all hope, and I believe this will be the case, is that we are going to be able to offer at some point in the 2021 year face-to-face CBA 101 classes to people out in their districts, people at our conferences and other places. So, our hope will be then it'll be virtual offerings, online offerings, and again, face-to-face offerings, which I think for new board members are often the most robust way to learn because you get to share with each other in person. You get to talk to each other at break. Those are the things that we're all hoping to see come back. And somebody posted, we have actually a superintendent that's on, I think probably with one of his board members, but this in-person school board meetings continue to be prohibited until at least January 31st under the governor's latest order. Let's see. Yes, membership assistance fund. I know we're right on at 2 minutes before we need to wrap up today. This is another program that we created with the board. It's been now in existence. This is its second year. Just like school districts, MASB's budget year starts in July and runs through the end of June 30th. So we have a membership assistance fund also. This is a fund, and you can find more information on the website too. It is available to those districts and board members that come from districts that are have financial situations that don't really allow for the payment of professional development, or maybe the payment of the full amount, or maybe it prohibits you or stops you as a board member from feeling that you want to spend your district money. And so that gets approved by our board of directors, those applications do. And typically, when I say that about not affording it, we really tend to look at the fund balance of a school district. We get that information from the state of Michigan. We actually ask that information in the application. And so if you are a district that either has a fund balance that's below 10%, or if you're a district that maybe you're a really small district, so you might have a 20% fund balance, but that's still only $100,000. That's another space where we understand the percentage of your budget, and that is covering up to 50% of the costs for classes. That would be an example for individual board members, and up to $500 of a cost or half on some of our other services like in-district workshops, a superintendent search. So please, if you're a district in that situation, look at the membership assistance fund. It is on, information is on most of our registration forms. So as it relates to classes or events, you'll see information on there and you can look at that. The one thing is there is an application, you need to kind of apply ahead of time for it so that we can make sure we have the funds to provide that. But that is something that we also created last budget cycle and we've continued into this year. I appreciate, and see this, I talked about staff earlier, and I'm watching all the staff from MASB answer your questions while we're on this. And so, they're only reaffirming what I said earlier, is they are really good about getting the questions answered as quickly as they can. Is there a checklist of classes needed for board certification? Yes, you can go on our website and see what at each level, what those classes are that you would need. And another, this is from another quirk with webinars. When we end, it ends for all of us. And so we're not trying to cut you off, but this will be something that is a little bit different than our ending for our normal webinars that we have. So Jill, we are at 1 o'clock. I want to respect the time of our board members. I don't know if you would like to offer some parting words to all of these wonderful people that took an hour out of their day-to-day to start learning about MASB and how we can help them.
First of all, thank you. You're just showing your dedication to being an amazing board member. And by starting your journey off learning about MASB and how we can help all of you, words of advice, there's so much to learn. Be patient with yourself. You will get there to that space that you have a lot of confidence and ability to do the best you can for the students in your district. So we thank you for being here today. Means a lot, and we wish you well and hope to see you next month at the second Wednesday of the month for number 2 in the series, correct?
Correct. Thanks, Jill. And I want to say, maybe on a lighter note, I want to thank everybody that attended, and nobody spammed me for the Green Bay Packer lamp that was behind me, so I appreciate that. I did see a couple of UP school districts on today. That's where I grew up. I kind of tend to wear that on my sleeve. As you get to know me, that's all you know me. And so they probably appreciate the Packer lamp. You know, again, my apologies to the Detroit Lions Nation that once again, there will be no playoffs for the Detroit Lions, but enjoy the rest of your week, folks. Please reach out to me directly, to Jill, to Greg. Don't hesitate. I think Jill doesn't look at the presidency or the executive director position as one that we are not completely open to interacting with our members. We in fact enjoy that part of our job. So thank you very much.